Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I'm joined by the wonderful Linda Davidson, who's going to lead us through a session on personal transformation. So Linda is somebody that I've known for a number of years. I'm not going to go too much into her background because I'm sure that forms part of the story that she's going to share with us today. So without further ado, Linda, thank you for your time, and over to you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to see you all on the call. So as Kevin said, I'm going to talk a little bit about personal transformation. And the reason why I'm talking about personal transformation is because I was made to realize only about a year ago that I've actually personally transformed myself a number of times, and how that has impacted my ability to have different bits of a career, but an eccentric career, actually, thinking about it, but a career nonetheless, and continue to have a career. And I'll go into the reasons why, but it's all around personal transformation and how we can personally transform ourselves. And the reason why I think it's important at the moment is because we're at that intersection again of technology and people. It's like the early days of the internet, and we didn't know where it was going to go. We had no clue, but we knew it was going to do something. And I think we're there again now. And what that is for us as people in industry, how does that impact us? How do we respond to it? How do we live through it in a way, and come out the other side and still be part of it? Us as people in technology, we see the changes in technology on a daily basis, and we run with it and we move with it. And I guess it's just a little bit more of that. So my story, and this is why Kevin and I were talking about personal transformation, I realized that when we were talking is that I'm a really shiny example of personal transformation. And yes, it's the one thing that I can say that that I'm really good at is adapting and transforming and moving forward. I'm terrible at lots of other things. Yeah, let's not go there. So my story is, and I'll go back quite a way if that's all right with everybody. So I was brought up in foster care. So I was in care until I was 13. Then went back to live with my mum. And the day before my 16th birthday, I was out on my own. And so I went to be a dancer in a working men's club, what they used to call working men's club, and they really all were men, for four men. I don't think they exist anymore, hopefully. And so I was a dancer, and I actually really loved it because I got to wear feathers and sequins and all kinds, and still wear lots of sequins. And so that's what I did. I went and got this job, and do you know what? I got paid £30 a night. It was 1980, and I was really rich. And then what I wanted to do was go and work for a choreographer called Loretta Legg on Blackpool Pier. And that was my ambition. That's what I wanted to do. But then I had a perspective shift, and perspective shifts are really important for us all. And I'll come on to that in a bit. But I was watching something on the telly, and it was called A Kind of Loving, the Stan Bairstow book. And it was, apart from Coronation Street, it was the first time I'd heard a Northern accent on the telly box. And I thought, oh. And I was drinking a bottle of Lambrusco with my best friend, Julie. And I thought, why don't we just go down to London? And I was in Liverpool at this point. And why don't we just go and be actors? Let's do it. So we bought the Lady magazine because we thought that was dead respectable. And we got a bedsit in Balham, which actually turned out to be in the red light district as it was then. It's dead posh now, but it wasn't then. And And we pitched up to Liverpool Lime Street. And I was actually just looking at the pictures of us because we went into one of those photo booths. Again, they don't exist really except posh parties. And we took pictures of ourselves, which I guess was the selfie of the day. And we went to get on the train, and I got on the train, and I turned around, and she said, "I'm not coming. I'm not doing it." So I got on the train. I closed the door on the train, and it was those trains in that day where they had the window that came down like that. And I put my head out, and I blew her a kiss. We both had a cry, and I came down to London and got a job in a pub, and then auditioned for drama school, got in, thank God. And then there was I'm not going to dwell too much on this bit, but my first acting job was in EastEnders. It was right at the very start of the programme, and I got a face full of eczema on the first day of filming. I was that terrified. What was I, 20? And they had to reshoot it all, which actually was a blessing in disguise because I looked better than that, not looked, but sounded better than I did on the first few takes. Anyway, acting. So then, fast forward, another perspective shift. Fast forward 13, 15 years later, I was writing for a BBC Science Strand, which I still, to this day, like getting on the train and coming, do not know how it happened, but it did. I'm a girl with no maths or English, and I was writing for Tomorrow's World. It is insane. And they were launching something called a website. And so I went and sat with the engineers, and what they were doing with those numbers and those wires was like, it blew my mind. It was like the most creative thing I'd ever seen in my life. And the potential of it, the potential of communication, and obviously being an actor, I was a communicator. And so I had a career change. Literally overnight, I went off and did a play that I was meant to be doing anyway, and then came back and joined the launch team of BBC Online. And then went to Channel 4, then went to Discovery. I launched E4, went to Discovery, where they made me IT director, which was bonkers. But the reason why they did that was because I knew everything about television, and it was at a time when technology was coming front and center of business rather than being in the darkened hallows of the basements. And so they knew that I would be able to translate between the technologists, engineers, and the creatives over on the telly side. And it was at that time where which still happens actually, I don't know why I'm saying it was at that time, where IT people would say, "Oh, the business." You're like, no, we are the business. And so it was all about getting a seat at the table, and which, because I spoke that language and I spoke the tech language, although I don't have a tech background, I was able to do that translation piece and broker it. So that was another perspective shift. So Discovery, that was incredible. Afforded me the opportunity to travel a lot, which again gave me lots of perspective shifts. Anyway, career. What I wanted to talk about was how we personally transform. At the moment, when there's a whole load that we could read on the internet and read in the broadsheets and, well, read anywhere about how bots are sifting CVs and determining our future. And I honestly don't think that's the case. I think it's people that will shape the future. It's us. It's every single one of us on this call. And I think we just need to tap into ourselves about how we can do that. And so I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking about, soon enough we won't be looking at CVs from a skills perspective, because skills are skills. What we need are other attributes that will grow a business and grow ourselves within a business. And that's increasingly PwC, or the big four, they've all done research on this and researched how personal attributes can help grow a business. And diversity as well. So diversity, we're mostly women on this call, and we don't need to be telling anybody about gender diversity in the workplace and how beneficial it is to the bottom line. So I was thinking about it quite a lot in the last year, and the reason why was because I had time, because I got made redundant in the summer, and secondly because I wanted to do something around representation of care experience people in the workplace. Because as we know, as mostly women on this call, if you don't see yourselves, you can't show up. And I haven't seen myself in the workplace, and I actually didn't come out until I was 40 as care experienced. So, there was a lot of shame associated with it, and there still is a stigma. There's a problematic narrative around people like me. So I was thinking about how it is that, what are those things that made me resilient and adaptable and resourceful to be able to move forward in a career. So obviously, being an ex-creative, or still a creative, because you can't help being one, can you? I had to come up with an acronym, and that is RARE. So it's our rare sensibilities, our rare superpowers. And that is resilience, adaptability, resourcefulness, and empathy. And those are the things that I notice in business and in leaders and in the stats that are starting to come through now, that are being required in businesses and of us as people in industry. Excuse me, just going to have a cup of tea. And so what do I mean by resilience? I think what I mean is it's that ability to bounce back. It's that ability to be able to move through difficulties, opportunities as well, and challenges, and move through them, keeping grounded. And I think that's one of the things that it is really helpful in industry, if we can be resilient, and if we can just move through things without having an emotional connection to it. We work in technology, change happens, it's inevitable. Change is constant in our industry, and we have an investment as people in how things are done in the past. We always will, because we're people, we're human beings, and we do have that emotional connection. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the change curve, or the grief curve, or that it's often used. It's moving through change, and you get into that trough of disillusionment, and then you come up into acceptance. And if you're resilient, you can get through it really quickly. And that's not to say that you have to ignore those feelings of frustration and anger. And I mean, I had a cup of tea with a woman today who I worked with at Group M, he's right in that trough of disillusionment, and it's just about helping people get or helping yourself get up to acceptance and moving on and moving through it and finding your way through change without not obviously acknowledging your investment in how things were done in the past and the people that were there in the past. So that's resilience. I'm aware that I'm absolutely banging on. If there are any questions, just put your hand up and ask me. So what's next? Rare adaptability. I think by adaptability, and we work in tech, we are by the very nature adaptable because we are moving things through and suggesting alternative solutions to business problems. So I guess you could strike out, but it doesn't make for good reading, an acronym. You could strike out adaptable for curious. So one of the things that I've noticed, particularly with some of the cohorts that I've worked with at in my last job, and the board, there was only one woman on the board. And I don't want it to be about a gender war, but there was no curiosity about how things could be done differently, or how another organisation was perhaps solving problems in the way that we might do, or how a different nationality might be looking at that problem or business challenge, or a different technology, for example. The curiosity seemed to have got lost. It was just, this is just how we do it now. And so that adaptability didn't transcend across the organisation, and it needed to. And I guess underpinning adaptability is being able to keep the threads of your story as you are adapting and moving with the time. So I guess as well with adaptability, I talked about perspective shifts earlier, and how my perspective was shifted by seeking out information or receiving other information and going, oh, I'm not going to be a dancer on Blackpool Pier. What I'm going to do is go to London and be a dancer. And because I was young and stupid, I actually did it. But now, there's that fear, there's the fear that kicks in of pivoting and going, okay, I can do this. I can be resilient and I can adapt. And this is the situation. How do I see it through a different prism? And who can I seek out to help me see that way forward? And that's always the hardest thing to do, isn't it? Is to seek out other people and say, I'm struggling, I want to adapt here, or I'm trying to be resilient to this, but this is what's happening and I'm kicking up against this. So can you help? So adaptability. I think adaptability actually is probably one of the primary pieces of the puzzle of personal transformation, is to not be locked. We talk a lot about being in the moment, but I guess not to be locked into the moment and to the past, but to transition through into the future. God, that sounded like utter bollocks, but I guess that I guess I mean it actually. Is not to just to dwell in the now, is to just kind of move through. Oh, resourcefulness. So I'm just remembering how I'm resourceful. When I first moved to London, I had a kettle and a duvet, which I got from Woolworths, which obviously doesn't exist anymore. But I very quickly bought myself a Habitat duvet cover. And it was 1981, so duvets were relatively a new thing. Anyway, my duvet cover was green and white, and I thought I was the business. But I had a kettle, and that was it. So I used to boil eggs in the kettle by leaving the lid up. And that's resourcefulness, is looking at, I haven't got a cooker, what do I have, and what can I create with what I've got, and what problems can I solve, like eating? What problems can I solve with what I've got? And that's resourcefulness in a nutshell, or an eggshell. And I guess if we can demonstrate to ourselves and to the industries that we are, or the businesses that we are participating within, how we anticipate problems or challenges or opportunities, actually, how we anticipate opportunities is often missed. And then how we as resourceful people resource for those opportunities. I think being resourceful in business is really important, and seeing above and around rather than the track of our job description and our role. So I guess that's resourcefulness done. I think with all of those three, I would, which is what I did after I got made redundant last year, was have a look at where I was resilient and adaptable and resourcefulness, and where I wasn't. Actually, I didn't feel particularly resilient last year. I had loads going on with my health and loads of other things. My mum died. I didn't feel particularly resilient at all. And so I had to really look at that, because, when you're used to going, okay, that happened, I'm just going to dust myself off, stand up and go. But I didn't feel like I could. And so it was a moment of stopping. And looking back on it, that feels like a moment of resilience, of saying, I can't, and I'm not going to. So I think what I'm trying to say here is that is recognize your own boundaries and boundaries for other people, which will get me onto empathy in a sec, I suppose. But recognize where you are resilient, where you aren't resilient, what leads you to not being resilient, and how can you support yourself, and how can you get and seek support in the areas where you don't feel resilient. And life is life. It's not just work, is it? We multitask. We're parents, we're wives, we're partners, we are sisters, we are brothers, we are all of these people. We're friends. We're all of these people, and we bring them and hold them within ourselves. And I guess it's understanding which bits that you need to take into your work and into your life, and be you. And God, I hate that. Bring your authentic self to work, because that's utter bollocks as well, isn't it? It's very few organisations that I found that all people can bring their authentic selves to work, because we live in a heteronormative world, and so and a white world. So it's it's an interesting concept. Yes, where was I going? Yes, so I'm just trying to say, recognise where you're really good at being resourceful and adaptable and resilient, and where the areas are that you can shine a light on and say, well, I'm actually not really in those areas. I'm not great at those superpowers. They're not my superpower, but these are. And then we were talking very briefly about boundaries, and we get onto empathy here. And empathy is often misunderstood for being nice or kind or soft or other saccharine terms. And it's really, really not. It's setting your own boundaries of what you will and won't tolerate at work and in life. And also setting boundaries, helping other people set their boundaries with you. So that we all need to be boundaried, because if I'm trying to explain this. So in my own example, and I hate to bring it back to me again, but if in my own example was when I realized that I was being overly empathetic in a kind and a nice way, was that I was taking on too much, and to the detriment of myself, and it was in a work environment as well. And so being empathetic needs to be boundaried, but it also needs to be listened. So it's about listening and understanding that not everybody can be you or how you do things. I mean, I had a lunch with a girlfriend on Sunday, and she works in sustainable energy, dead smart. She's got this young guy working for her who doesn't do things in the same way that she does, and the whole lunch was about helping her understand that not every people don't do things in the way that you do. My husband won't let me stack the dishwasher because I don't do it like he likes it, and I'm not allowed to put the bins out because I don't put them in at the right angle. I mean, it's ridiculous, and gendered probably, but so it's about, I guess what I'm trying to say is empathy is about understanding difference and listening to and looking out for difference, but also about setting your boundaries, because we need our own boundaries so people don't take the piss, basically, because they can do. And then I think the final thing I'll say before I do the cri de coeur for Outside Thinkers, which is my new community interest company, is, how long have we got, Kevin?
I was just muted, sorry. We're free until 1 o'clock, so we've got 25 minutes. But yeah, I think it'd be good to have a quick break for questions between the two pieces. So I've got some questions for you, so that'll be good after you've wrapped up this bit.
So I guess the cri de coeur for us on this call is say yes. Is just say yes. Say yes. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I'll look into that. Yes, I'll see what that means for me. But we are all rare. We're resilient, we're adaptable, we're resourceful, and we're empathetic. And that's why we will transform, and why we will continue to be relevant in industry. Okay.
Nice. So I guess the piece that stands out to me, it links the start and the end of the conversation really. So you're talking about the new CV and moving away from, you know, what we used to define as skills to these kind of set of personal attributes. I think you give us quite a nice set of personal attributes to start with. It might not be the complete set, but resilience, adaptability, resourcefulness, empathy, 4 pretty key ones. So that's a learn for me is when I'm advising people that really haven't got a lot of commercial experience, how can they evidence the skills that they do bring to the table? And we can all pull from our own lives where we've been resourceful. Boiling eggs in a kettle, for example, you never put that on the CV, but it absolutely undermines and highlights the skill that you've got. So I think that's a learn from me. The question I had, I guess, was those 4 attributes. Do you think they're things that are trainable, or do you think they're just inherent and you either have them or you don't have them? And if somebody feels like, oh, I don't have that piece, are there things they can do to develop one of those 4?
I think that's a really good question. I think the reason why I landed on those 4, and not just because of the acronym, and it's quite neat and tidy and lovely, is because I do think we are all resourceful, and I think we all are adaptable. We go from primary school to secondary school to apprenticeships or into work, and then we change jobs, or we move from our mum and dad's house or our guardians' houses into independent living. We have to be resourceful, we have to be adaptable, we have to be resilient. Some people aren't empathetic. I would concur with that, or they've not found, they're either hypervigilant, which is not a superpower, or they are completely the antithesis of that. So the empathy thing might be something that, but then, you know, most people have friends, most people have relationships with siblings, or which you know, they need to bring something to that table, otherwise they wouldn't have friends. But yeah, it's a really good question, and I'll probably reflect on that a lot more and then give you a call. But I think we have them innately. It's just about bringing them up and saying, these are my rare superpowers. This is how I've done it in the past. Where can I do it for my future? Yeah, I think so. What others would you add to that, Kevin?
You're not supposed to ask me questions, Linda. This isn't what this is about. Putting me on the spot. I think it's a good question for the room, though. Actually, are there any other, you know, those inherent traits or those things that you think transcend role types and technical skills that companies actually really value and that we should be, you know, bringing to the fore and shouting up from the rooftops that we have these skills? It's the easy answer because stealing what you've already said, but I do think curiosity is definitely one of those. Because, you know, you want somebody that's going to look for the problems or see the problem and look for the solution, not just highlight the problems. Definitely. Anybody else got any thoughts on that?
Not on that particularly. I had a question.
Go on, Charlie. Fire away, mate.
Okay, so my question was around, I think you spoke about bring your authentic self and how, I guess, there are challenges with that, the reality of actually being that in organisation. I was just wanted to, can you shed a bit more light on that?
Which way do you want me to go with that? And can I ask you a question first?
Mm-hmm.
Can you help me understand how you pronounce your first name, please?
Sade.
Oh, it is Sade.
Yeah, it's just not, it's with the H I know is meant to have just, yeah, it's Sade.
Now I've got Sade music.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is I think that's my motto, and it's always been. I'm a big on personal branding and really being yourself, whatever that means. It could be, especially for people like myself who are people of color. I think we have other struggles that others probably don't have, and so I personally sometimes I think I'm too harsh on myself on how I show up. So I just kind of wanted to understand a bit more because I obviously have my own view on that, but I'd say in the context of a female in a maybe male-dominated industry, what does that mean to you when you say that? And why do you say it's a bit of a faff there? I want to understand a bit more. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my opinion, and other people's opinions in the places that I've worked might differ. So my opinion is that unless there is, if there is a norm, then people fit into that norm. So for example, I noticed that somebody that I worked with at Group M, my last corporate job, on a Monday morning wouldn't join in with the conversations about, oh, and then I took the kids swimming, and then, how was your weekend? I took the kids swimming, and then I did this, and then my husband and I, or my partner and I, or my boyfriend and I, we went for a walk along the Thames, let's say. So what he was doing at the weekend was at GAY and or equivalent, and so didn't feel like he could share any of that, because although he was showing up to work and being him, he wasn't being his full self. So he couldn't share the church that he goes to, because it's a church that is a denomination that is not on a tick list, on in the same way that I'm not on a tick list on when a protected characteristic. So I'm not a religion or a, you don't see, are you care experienced, because we're not a protected characteristic. So I find it that the whole representation piece of getting people of colour into workplaces is fantastic, and it is moving. But I'm hearing that, Sade, that maybe you aren't able to bring your full self to work. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not for me personally. No, I bring my full self to work. In fact, I'm very bold of it, and I'm very confident with bringing my whole self to work. So, in terms of
How
that,
did you get there?
Sorry.
How did you get there, or did you just do it?
Actually, I went through some coaching, so I knew that I had a lot of inner thought that were not very good. So for me, it was confident. First of all, it started with confidence through what I do day to day, making sure I actually know my onion within my industry, and kind of that gave me the confidence. But then also just bringing it. So one of the things I've done in the past is I've instigated International Day for the. I've always been part of Women Community, so all my work organization. I'm currently the head of Women Empowered within my current organization as well. So I'm intentional about let's all bring lunch in, right? So I'll cook my Nigerian food. You can bring your Indian food, you can bring your Romanian food, you can bring your Polish food. And so it's a bit subtle, but I'm a bit strategic with it as well. So by the time we start to bring that, we start to have some conversation. There's a different type of conversation you have when you've got different food smelling in the room than all eating sandwiches and trying to be polite, right? So I'm strategic with the way I approach things, but I'm also aware that not every organization has that kind of culture. So I'm a big believer in you create the culture that you want to see. depending on the level of influence or authority you've been given. And if you don't have it, I'm a big believer in try and get there so that you can, influence that if you can. So that's, for me, that's what I've done to kind of be that authentic. And I'm very open. If I can't come in because I haven't slept very well, because my child is, being up with a cold, I'm very open. I say I'm going to work remotely today. And my organisation is quite accommodating for that. Sorry?
Where do you work?
I work for CETA Aero. Yeah. So.
Well, what a brilliant organisation.
Mm.
Can I nick? Would you mind if I nicked your phrase? Create the culture you want to see.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll give you full credit for it, obviously.
That's fine. Yeah.
So coming back to the personal traits, Linda suggested audacity. I think that word can be that word can be taken in a few different ways. I'm going to take from it that you mean having the bravery and to challenge the status quo and take risks and not just go with the flow. Is that how you meant it, or?
Yes, absolutely. And you can say negative connotations, Connor, but it's literally just having sometimes like a running joke, like have the audacity of a middle-aged, bolden man who's trying to crack onto a supermodel. It doesn't stop them and they go for it. And that's kind of the same, just really pushing it out there. It kind of falls in with they say yes, doesn't it? So it's really just, and it goes into like when women look at applications, they feel they have to cover 90% of the job spec rather than men, who have the audacity to go, 40% I can do, the rest I can, no bother. So it's kind of maintain the audacity and going with it and just having the bravery to push yourself to that level.
Linda, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
It's one Linda to another. Do you think I should change the word adaptable to audacity in the RARE acronym? Because I'm quite wedded to it now. Because actually it's a really good shout.
I'm all for it because I thought of it. But no, yeah, I think it's, it kind of, the two kind of go hand in hand, don't they? So like adaptable audacity and kind of, I think it has a bit more punch to it, but yes, I won't critique you for it, thing.
Yeah, audacity is a really good word. Because we I guess without being gender specific, but we do need to be audacious.
Yeah.
And that goes hand in hand with being resilient and resourcefulness. It's like what Sade was saying, is putting yourself out there and going, take me.
Yeah. Even when sometimes it's tough, it's just really grabbing the audacity to keep on, to push yourself forward through it. So yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that. It's a really good word. Thank you for giving me that.
No problem.
So Linda, do you want to tell us a bit more about Outside Thinkers?
Yeah. So thank you. So the thing is that we as mostly women on the call know that in certain industries, particularly in ours, is that if we can't see ourselves, then we can't come and show ourselves. And I was reflecting on my own journey and being care experienced, and the fact that we're not a protected characteristic. So organisations don't know who in their world are care experienced. So there are loads of policies now for like menopausal women, and for many protected characteristics, so neurodiversity, etc., people of colour, etc. There are policies in place. There's nothing in place for people like me to support me in the workplace. Not that I need it now, because I'm ancient and I've been in it for a long time, but the next generation might, and they might want to see themselves in and see the shift in a problematic narrative which is we all end up in prison, we all end up in the streets, and we all end up addicted. And those are the three narratives that and so I've been working with Channel 4 for the last, in a voluntary capacity, just because I've worked with them so many times, in the last year particularly, is to get care experience people into Channel 4. They stopped short of doing apprenticeship programs for them, but they did do an employability skills thing, and they're going to extend it. And I said to them last year, how many people in Channel 4 are care experienced? And they didn't know. And I said, how many people in your organisation are adopters? How many foster carers have you got? They didn't know. And that's what made me think, oh my God, this is what I need to be doing next. So outside thinkers is people that think outside the box, and it's not just foster care experience people that think outside. We all do, but I like the fact that I'll start with that cohort and then expand it and open it up to other outside thinkers, because as we know, outside thinking is those rare capabilities. It's not just thinking. It's like what Sade was saying about, this is who I am. I'm going to do food, because people can relate to food and the smells, and they can bond and commit. And so it's different. It's an outside thought. It's not the butties that you get in from Pret. And so what I'm trying to do is, the call to action is to find people in organisations that are like me, that have been successful, so that we can start introducing care experience people to successful people and convening them, and bringing local authorities into business, because there are care experience people in those businesses. And so it's all about representation. And until we get that protected characteristic, there won't be any, and there won't be any policies to support it. I've just been on the board of John Lewis, and what we've done there is create policy around care experience people coming into the organisation, but also care experience givers, and how they can be supported, because obviously there's a national shortage of care experience people. So I guess, and thank you, Kevin, for giving me a little bit of space to talk about it. The call to action is, it's another revolution. It's another revolution in the workplace. We are outside thinkers, and we have our rare capabilities, and we are audacious, and we will be seen. And so we're collecting allies, but we're also collecting care experience people who are already in industry, to come and join us in that revolution, so that we can start to grow our presence in organisations. And as I said at the outset, I didn't come out until I was 40, and I could stay, because I don't look, I don't have colour, I can blend and just be in the shadows as a care experience person. But I have a lot to offer. I have given a lot, and now outside thinkers is going to start with care experience people, but it will include other. I hate to use the word disadvantage, but it's the shorthand, isn't it? So I don't mean poverty. I mean other disadvantaged groups that think differently and are marginalised, to get us in, basically. That's it. So
Yes,
come and join
brilliant.
my revolution if you fancy it.
That's awesome, Linda. Really inspiring. Thank you for sharing the story, and you definitely given me some things to think about. And I'm sure we'll get a lot of traction on this video once we share it afterwards as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today, and hope to see you again soon.
God. I'm really excited that you all joined, and thank you very much. Come and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll go and connect with you on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for organising.